Hello friends out there in YouTube land, Rob here. Today I want to share with you some additional testing that I've been doing with the x1500 series cameras from Panasonic, these camcorders, x1500, x2000, and CX10. All of them share the same sensor, the same internals, same codecs. The difference is how they get their signals out in a broadcast situation between SDI and NDI, basically is it. The CX10 does have some additional P2 profiles you can get. That gets into some other stuff that we're just not talking about today. So for functionality purpose and recording, everything's the same. And I wanted to kind of just share with you my thoughts that have been going on with this camera, specifically how I've been using it. It's another one of those coffee cup kind of conversations, so grab yourself a mug and let's get down to chit-chatting. Scope of the video today is going to be to talk about the video itself. I've got a nice little 2-minute video. I'm going to do a commentary while we watch it together to share with you some low light footage at the Virginia Beach fishing pier just after 4th of July and just give you a look at what this camera can actually do without any noise reduction and an extreme color grade. Okay, we're going to talk about the HEVC codec, the long got codecs, how they work on your computers and the different devices, because I've found that they don't exactly work the same everywhere. Natively, you may have to download some codecs or have a program that can read it like Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. And we're going to finish it up with some problem points, notes on low light, and then my pro tips. And that's going to be it. So let's jump right into it now. Let's go ahead and open up the iPad. Everything that you're going to see here is filmed at 0 decibels of gain, except for the last 2 clips, which are filmed at 6 decibels of gain. All right, let's check it out. So we open up at Virginia Beach, and this is a shot of the location post on the Virginia Beach fishing pier, just telling you where things are and how far away they go. Everything that you're seeing right now is shot in the f3 Spark profile, which is a Rec 709 profile. I'm also shooting at 24 frames per second, and my shutter is at 1/48. Now what you're looking at is low light as the sun is setting. Check out the noise profiles that you see over here. It's going to get a lot darker in just a moment. But these color profiles are actually graded using the Filmic flat profile and a little bit of image correction, just color correction, using LumaFusion. This was all done inside the iPad using LumaFusion. Beautiful shot there. This is the noisiest shot of the entire night. You can kind of see it in some of the sky after this relatively heavy grade has been placed on here. In fact, we've graded this so heavily that the Spark footage, the regular Rec 709 footage, almost looks like raw footage. And I'll show you some of that too. I love this shot here, just the beach going. One of the things I've noticed about the HDX 1500 series of cameras is that if you shoot at low light, finding a place with spill light or shooting for a silhouette effect is very helpful at reducing noise. Also gives you these just absolutely gorgeous images. Now as you look into some of the darker areas, you'll notice that there could be some noise creeping in. There has been no noise reduction, no signal processing noise reduction done at all. So imagine what this would look like with something like Neat Video or a Topaz filter on here. It'd be amazing. Why don't you tell me what you think down in the comments below? I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, and we are back. Lots of fun there. I hope that you enjoyed that. Problem points. Let's talk about it a little bit. Man, the first problem point of this entire thing is the zoom ring. And I got to tell you, Panasonic just failed here, in my opinion. I don't know if you can hear this. It's wobbly. Okay, it's the same for the multifunction ring as well, but because it's wobbly, if you're using this camera without an external microphone, it's going to pick up every single one of those noises that it makes because, well, the microphone's right there. Also, the linear motor in this seems to be no good in my opinion. Why? Well, it's because the adjustments are too gross, they're too coarse. Even in the fine adjustment setting, when you go to try to make this thing work through manual focus, which you'll want to use because the autofocus can be nervous, especially if you have a high contrast background or of small things like blinds in the background. You can see that in the autofocus mode, you can kind of see those things pulsing. You can also see that if there were to be any areas of bokeh or small pinpoint light objects like Christmas lights or outdoor lights, things like that, or street lights at nighttime, you can kind of see those things focus and pulse as well. That's when this manual focus ring should be, well, very useful. I don't think that it is very useful because it just focuses so coarsely, which is strange because Panasonic usually makes a great one. Now, it could be my settings. It could have something set wrong and I switched profiles and didn't know it. So I'll go back and look and check and update you on this consistently as we go through. But you're going to want it to be good because we need it to be good for this additional screen right here. We want to focus using that screen. Well, the screen's not very bright, hence the need for a bright view monitor. This is 2200 nits. This feels to be around 500. I have no way to tell you for sure. I just know that I've got a phone that's about 500 and it's about as bright as that, and it's not as bright as another monitor that I have is 300. So take that with a grain of salt. But when you go to look at this to compose, it would work that well for you out in an outdoor environment, even in the sunlight, especially if you put your hand over it. But otherwise, you're going to be using this monitor right here. And when you use this monitor right here, the eye cup is terrible. It's too hard. It's too rigid for people with eyeglasses. You have to take off the eyeglasses. And then when you look through, it's an extremely small magnified object. It's not optically, it's not big. It's small, so it looks like you're looking through a tunnel. So any benefit that you would get from taking off your glasses to look through it is completely destroyed because then it's so small with me, I can't even read the letters and the numbers in there. So it's just no good in either way. The contacts seems to work fine. So even if this was good and soft like the other eye cups that are out there, it still wouldn't do me any good. So I need to use this. Okay, fine. So you go to focus, then you output to here to see your focus. That's great, you can now see it, but that's when you can really tell that the focus ring itself, the zoom ring, is just too coarse, even in the fine setting mode. Maybe that can be fixed with a software update. I don't know. As we continue on along, we talked about that nervous autofocus, but we don't even get face detect autofocus in any manual mode. It's only in the full auto mode that we get face detect autofocus. Why? I have no idea. It seems to make no sense. We should be able to have face detect autofocus anytime we want, but we can't. Face detect autofocus would at least alleviate the ability to have to try to focus manually in a situation where it can detect faces. Recognize this becomes even worse on a shoot like I did that you saw earlier because at nighttime, man, when it starts to get dark, the autofocus in this camera does not seem to perform as well as it does in the light. That should make quite a bit of sense. They're still using the depth from defocus focusing algorithm that they have in here, so it's all contrast-based stuff. Anyway, no phase detect. If it is phase detect, let me know in the comments below, but from everything I've seen and read, I've even asked Panasonic in an email, they have yet to respond. It's small and light, which sounds like a good thing until you have to use it. Now I like it because it's small and light, but this jog dial is ridiculously fiddly. In fact, being small and light means that the optical image stabilization has to work, and it has to work well because a smaller, lighter camera doesn't absorb motion that you might input, those micro jitters, just from handling as well as a larger camera. It just doesn't. So even on my bigger cameras that don't have 5-axis image stabilization, this, when working handheld and trying to work in manual mode and adjust all the settings, is even more jittery and has more motion from handling than it would if I was just using a larger camera. Now, if I'm not focusing on any of that stuff and I just put the camera in auto mode, yes, if I'm just solely putting my attention to holding the camera steady, then handheld mode works great. And the OIS is good too, but it's a trade-off at that point. Now, maybe you can hold your camera more steady than I can hold mine, that's fine, but I've found that if you're gonna use this camera, put it on a tripod, and I really think the best place for a camera like this is actually on a gimbal. With a remote control of the Lank or the Panasonic version of that Lank controller that allows you to control your zoom and your focus, you can set your camera up, put it on a gimbal like the Weeble 2 or something like that, and then carry it around. I think that's the way to do it. Then you get rid of all the jitters, everything works well together. And that's something that I'm going to be looking into myself. And because that jog dial is so fiddly, you would think that the buttons would work well. Well, aside from the fact that I don't like the buttons at all, when you push the gain button or the iris button or the shutter button on here, it just simply switches between manual and automatic. And that would be fine if when it switched to manual, it would not automatically go back to automatic. You have to use the jog dial in order to adjust it and then push the jog dial to set that setting. Otherwise, that setting will stay highlighted, and if the jog dial were to get accidentally pressed, it would move that setting one way or the other. You would think you could just press it, set it with the jog dial, and press it again to lock it in, but it doesn't work that way. It's either auto gain or manual, which you then have to use the jog dial for. If that doesn't seem confusing, just trust me, it's a pain point. And that's pretty much all of my issues that I've got with this little camera. Everything else I like about it quite a bit. I really like the light. None of the video that you saw earlier was using any of this light. It was all just ambient spill light. But in areas or times when I've needed to get some additional kick light or just fill light or something like that, this thing works great. It is very bright and powerful, but it seems to not actually work through the whole range of the potentiometer. If you were to consider it a clock setting, 0 would be at 8 o'clock and 100% would be at 5 o'clock. Well, anything past 2 o'clock doesn't appear to make it any brighter. It just spins. And that's kind of my whole idea about the build quality of this. Yeah, I would expect 100% to actually be 100% and not figure it out around 80% and it doesn't get any brighter. I would expect these rings to be placed better. I would expect this mic to not be placed in a point where it picks up handling noise from the zoom rings. It's just all about 80%. Although the camera's great with the codecs and everything, just some of the implementation feels kind of funny. Now, moving on to a note on low light and noise, 18 decibels seems to be a spot where it's actually doing something here. All of my testing, I'm still testing this, but in my previous video you could actually see where I talked about this a little bit more. I did a side-by-side with another camera, the Panasonic HC X1 or the UX180, and it seems like the sensor is doing something between 18 and 24 decibels different than it does up to 18 decibels. Now, it feels almost like it's dual ISO, right? Like it's got two different sensitivity settings and that those settings overlap. And at that 18 decibel point is where it begins to overlap and start again. I can't say that that's true or not true. All I do know is that between 18 and 21 and 24, it doesn't really seem to be getting a lot brighter. What it does seem to be doing is adding in noise reduction. Of course, there's a loss of detail, but the noise reduction adds smear, which appears to brighten the image, but doesn't actually brighten the image. By the time you get into 24, past 24, 25, 27, 28, and 30, you definitely are seeing an increase in gain. But it's very interesting that 18 and 15 decibels, or 18 looks a little bit like 15 decibels, 24 looks a little bit like, well, maybe not 24, but 21 looks a little bit like 15. There's a point of overlap is what I'm saying. I don't know how important that is, but I'm still looking into it. Pro tips, film in manual. I know that we talked about the jog dial and everything else being a pain, but if you can film in manual, you will get better results no matter what you do on this camera. Now, the automatic setting is actually very good. If you put it in auto, set your neutral density filter and go, it'll do a good job. You can set some auto settings to not do certain things, like you can set your auto gain limit to be whatever you want it to be, and that's important, right? And that could help quite a bit. But if you can film it in manual on yourself, that'll help you out a lot. In low light, look for spill light. Look for areas that are just naturally bright even in the darkness. Look for sky lit or skyboxed areas where there's a sunset happening and there's a silhouette and something interesting in the background and some stuff moving in the foreground. That'll give you something of interest. If there's a reflective surface, such as water, or if there's a hard surface, such as black asphalt, maybe even concrete, that's kind of reflective of that overall light, what you'll see is a slight rebound or bounce light that will come off of that, which will light up whatever subject you're getting and just kind of add a nice look to it. Don't forget about that 1/24th synchro feature, which is really nice. And you can do this with lots of cameras, but it makes it very easy with your camcorder. In low light, if we're shooting 24 frames a second, in order to get the most light per frame, our 180-degree rule would tell us to be close to 1/48th of a second, or right at it, actually. No, let's just drop it down to 1/24th. You'll introduce a little extra motion blur if you're panning or if the subject's moving quickly, like someone casting a fishing line, especially in low light. But you will gain, well, 50% more time of exposure per frame. It'll totally brighten your image quite a lot. You'll like it a lot. And used in the right situations and scenarios, it can be the difference between grainy footage and excellent footage. So give it a shot, check it out. Don't be afraid to experiment. No matter what you do, stick below 15 decibels if you have to, right? I mean, it'll go up to 30 decibels, and if you like a little mushy mush, right, fine, no problem. But if you're trying to deliver anything, from my look, 15 decibels, even with noise, is still detailed, right? And you can use a noise buster like Neat Video that will maintain the detail and get rid of the noise in post-production. But if you go into 18 or 24, like I was saying earlier, you begin to scrub that noise with additional noise reduction done in camera. You get rid of all the detail. Nothing's going to help you there. Stick below 15 decibels. Below 10 if you can is okay. Below 6, between 6 and 10 is good. Below 6 is excellent. And closer you get to 0 is even better. I'd finally say upgrade the mic. Now this is pointed backwards because while I was recording, I wanted to be able to discuss my settings on the clip, so I'd have them for the video to make this video. But this little microphone right here that you can see, it's no good. It's in a terrible spot. Get the handle or invest in some kind of microphone on the top. If you don't have the top of the 1500, get the handle and invest in a shotgun mic. This is not a really great shotgun mic, but it's not bad either. I am going to upgrade it to a different one because when I turn it around, I need a shorty. I need a 7-inch or smaller shotgun mic because the tip where the fuzzy windscreen is blocks half of the light from the front light when I need it because of how far it sticks out. It doesn't get in this scene, but it does flag the light, and I don't like that. So that has been it, guys. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you found any of it helpful, don't forget that you can use those Amazon links down below or send me a cup of coffee through PayPal if you like, through a donation. I'm Rob. I've enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and reminding you that I will catch you on the flip side. Bye for now.